The largest teachers union in the country, the NEA, did file a lawsuit against me to bully me and harass me with frivolous litigation and to send a message to other parents that if you ask questions about public education, they will come after you. Good afternoon. My name is Nicole Solis, and I am a mother from Rhode Island who was sued by the teachers union simply because I wanted to know what my kindergartner would be learning in school. And here's how this happened. I asked to see the curriculum, and my school told me I had to submit a public records request. The curriculum wasn't posted online, and it wasn't available in a school district. Then I asked them if they were teaching gender theory, and they told me that they don't call children boys and girls, and they embed the values of gender identity into every classroom, including kindergarten, and they didn't want to answer any of my questions further. They told me that they would communicate with me only through public records requests, and that is the only way I could get my questions answered. And when I did submit the public records request that they told me to submit, and I submitted hundreds because I had hundreds of questions, my school board then put my name on the agenda of a public school board meeting and held a public school board meeting to discuss suing me for submitting the request that they told me to submit. In a 5-hour-long school board meeting, they openly debated my moral character, my political motivations. They said that I was causing chaos, wreaking havoc, harming the district, harming children. One school board member even said she felt unsafe and started to cry because, as you see, I'm really scary standing here right now. And they really just tarred and feathered me for asking questions. And they had never met me before, and this was the first school board meeting that I had ever been to in my life. They wanted to send a message to other parents that if you ask questions, they will come after you. Well, at the end of this meeting, they decided that they wouldn't sue me for asking questions because they never intended on actually suing me. They just wanted to publicly humiliate me in a school board meeting that was a show trial. And when that happened, then the teachers union, the largest teachers union in the country, the NEA, did file a lawsuit against me to bully me and harass me with frivolous litigation and to send a message to other parents that if you ask questions about public education, they will come after you. And I'm here so that this doesn't happen to any other parent in America. I'm still in litigation for almost 2 years with the teachers union. I still don't have my answers. But what I do know is that my school district and my teachers union didn't want to just hide the curriculum from me. They wanted to ruin my life just for asking for it. And I don't want that to happen to any other parent in America. So I'm very happy to be here today with this bill. And my question for you is, how will this bill ensure that parents like me can get their questions about education answered?
Jay, you want to take this, Virginia?
I will. First of all, Nicole, let me say thank you to you. Let me say thank you to Rona, again, for having courage. The story you've told indicates that they are bullies. They are bullies. They're supposed to be stopping bullying in the schools, but they themselves are role models for bullies. And thank the Lord that you did not step down, and I'm sure there are going to be other parents who are going to speak here and say they're not. But the Parents' Bill of Rights guarantees that you have the right to go to the school board. I mentioned earlier I was on a school board for 12 years, and I actually saw during my time on the school board a group of 10 parents could change the minds of school boards in those days. That has changed again because of the power of the union bosses primarily, who want to keep the control of the schools. But I brought my pocket copy of the Constitution with me today because Republicans pride themselves on doing things according to the Constitution. And so what the Parents' Bill of Rights has done is put into language that lives the Constitution. So we say one of the rights you have is to meet with and communicate with the officers of the school board and the school board. And where does that stem from? That stems from the First Amendment. And so I'm just going to reiterate that a little bit because I think it's very important. And I hope for any of you, if you run into this kind of problem, with the school boards, just take your pocket copy of the Constitution with you and say, you know, this is my right as a citizen, as a person who lives in this country. You don't even have to be a citizen. You can be legitimate. You'll be legally here. So let me say, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. But here's the most important point for our discussion today, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble. So when you go to a school board, you are there to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. And that's what you were doing. You were completely within your constitutional rights to do what you were doing. And our freedom goes away when these bureaucracies and these petty tyrants stand up to tell you what you cannot do and then sue you to intimidate you. But you have a rock to stand on, and that's the Constitution. And what the Parents' Bill of Rights is doing is reiterating to people in this country that we believe in the Constitution. We as Republicans believe in the Constitution, and we're upholding your rights as parents and students and citizens of this country. So God bless you for doing what you've done, and you'll prevail. You will prevail. Thank you very much.
Parents will prevail. Thank you.
How is it justifiable, ethical, and indeed moral to have books in our elementary, middle schools, and high schools with words so offensive that they are prohibited to be spoken in a public meeting?
We're not allowed to read the books that are currently in our children's libraries because it's obscene, but you voted to put those books back on the shelves.
And the books are so bad, Miss Pippin wasn't even allowed to read them in a public meeting. Every time she tried, it was stopped. So you can't say that it's good for students, but not good to read in a public meeting.
I would guess most of us in this room stood and pledged our allegiance to the American flag. One nation, only one, and under God. We don't divide people by their color of their skin, and we recognize one God, one higher power.
I'm speaking to you today as a concerned citizen and urge you to listen to parents in this county that are requesting a review of certain books in our schools. Children or minors under the age of 18 are not allowed to purchase cigarettes, liquor, Playboy or Hustler magazines in our local stores, or walk into a XXX theater unchecked and watch a movie. However, there is currently in our school libraries, which I have seen and read, that have quite explicit sexual language and illustrations in them. I recently also learned that this school board does not allow the reading of passages from these books in these public meetings, dubbing them as obscene. Truly, I was surprised at this, and it is the reason that prompted me to speak up today. How is it justifiable, ethical, and indeed moral to have books in our elementary, middle schools, and high schools with words so offensive that they are prohibited to be spoken in a public meeting? Would you say the same thing about the pictures that appear, the illustrations that appear in some of these books if I show them to you? Would you be offended and ask me to put them away and keep them hidden? Then why do we have them available for underage children to view? What happened to protecting our children's innocence? In conclusion, I have 3 simple points. Number 1, I urge you to listen to the parents here trying to do the right thing in protecting their children from topics that are too adult-like and mature for their age. It is their right as parents to protect their children from words and pictures that they are not yet mature enough to process. Number 2, I want to express my support for this board's policy and procedures regarding these books and urge all of you on the board to please support it, but more importantly, to deliver on it. I thank you all in advance, as I am assuming that you will all do the right thing and remove books from our school libraries that include mature sexualized content. These books should be vetted and reviewed and removed. And last, I urge you to edit the citizen input guidelines so that parents and the community may have meaningful and fruitful discussions on this topic. Nothing is accomplished by putting our heads in the sand so that you don't have to see what is happening. Thank you for listening.
I wanted to speak today on the DeSantis hit list or target list. I don't like that the media is calling it that, and DeSantis didn't call it that. We're holding our elected officials accountable. You represent the community. And if you're not protecting children and putting children and families in the best interest by parental rights and children, you're not doing your job. And you see all the news outlets here, I'm sure you're getting lots of calls. When we tell you you're breaking the law or you're not following the governor's orders or the health department orders, it doesn't stop here. We're sending that information to our elected officials in Tallahassee. We're sending it to our representative, our senators, like we're supposed to do as citizens. So if it falls on deaf ears here, it doesn't stop here. It goes up to further government. Unfortunately, a lot of things and issues that happened here in Indian River County the past couple of years fell on deaf ears. The mask mandate that violated the governor's orders, the two people that are up for re-election in 2024, you voted for that. We told you it was breaking the law. You voted to put pornography, sexually explicit content, and critical race theory back on the shelves a year ago this month. We're not allowed to read the books that are currently in our children's libraries because it's obscene, but you voted to put those books back on the shelves. And guess what? We went through legislation, and we have a new parental rights law in education now. We have a new library vetting committee, and those books are going to be permanently removed. They will be permanently removed. Okay?
Quiet, please. Thank you.
So I know one of you asked in the news, how does DeSantis know our voting records? Again, we sent all that information to him because he can't know what's going on in 67 counties. It's our job as the citizens to let our elected officials know what's going on. And you know what? If you always followed the law and you always followed the rules, you would have nothing to worry about. But this case, again and again and again, we're getting letters from the Department of Education. We're getting letters. There's been multiple Department of Education letters that have come to this board that said we're not in compliance. There's two we currently have now, and I know they're getting discussed later. So what we ask as citizens is to follow the laws, follow the rules, respect parental rights, and be best by all children and not just some children. Thank you.
As a parent, I wanted to say my full support for the governor's woke list. Through the chair, I remember when you and Mr. Barefoot voted to violate the governor's executive order, as well as going against the Surgeon General's directive and forced mandatory masking on children without parental opt-out. The district got a letter from the Florida Department of Education about this, saying that you were wrong. I also remember when the board decided to violate Sunshine Law in order to allow pornographic books back into the hands of school children. And the books are so bad, Ms. Pippin wasn't even allowed to read them in a public meeting. Every time she tried, it was stopped. So you can't say that it's good for students, but not good to read in a public meeting. And also, it looks like the board got a letter from the Florida Department of Education stating the violation of Sunshine also. I just wanted to say that these two school board members have not done best by children, should not be reelected for these positions. I came to every meeting for 2 years to only have one school board member listen, and I'm happy now that there's another one that replaced the person who was here last. I wholeheartedly agree with Governor DeSantis' analysis of the actions of these two school board members up for election. It seems that the state still listens better than our own school board. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. I thought we'd review some duties of elected officials. One, you should err on the side of too much transparency, not too little. For those of you who are expert in education law, if meetings are held about parent input from the meetings, and from those meetings came recommendations approved by the board and implemented by the superintendent, experts, I'm asking you, should the meetings be in sunshine? You should use common sense as elected officials. The Library Book Review Committee did send you recommendations, which you did approve. And the superintendent did implement using district staff. You knew their meetings were not held in sunshine. They were not fact-finding, air quotes I understand, meetings, and you expect, and all of the experts knew it. When all of it was pointed out to you, you still refused to admit that they were held illegally. You have a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers of this county to use their dollars wisely. In ignoring the obvious, whatever the reasons, you wasted taxpayer money and time, because now the district has to answer the legal challenges. Those attorney fees should come out of your pockets, not ours. And because the consulting attorney was clearly in the wrong, maybe it should come out of hers. And you need the means to call her out on that. Common sense tells us the only way to cure this is to review the books again in sunshine. And that arduous task, the one that you hailed the last superintendent for struggling through in the darkness, that time and trouble is not ours. I have to add for the record that I've read a couple of things lately. No one I know asked that books about Harriet Tubman or Roberto Clemente or any other historical figure be removed from our libraries. In fact, we want kids to be taught all of our history, particularly about those people of color who struggled, who were courageous, who studied, and who achieved. No one wants to divide us except those with an agenda. Lastly, I would guess most of us in this room stood and pledged our allegiance to the American flag. One nation, only one, and under God. We don't divide people by their color of their skin, and we recognize one God, one higher power. And when we all get back to those premises, our kids will not suffer, and we ask God to help us.